Janet, I see you dancing down there. I love that. So welcome and everybody. Good evening. Welcome to the Halloween edition of Space Fam. We have a wonderful show tonight. I was actually worried that I wasn't going to be able to get anybody because it was Halloween, and we ended up with an amazing group of people that are doing all kinds of incredible things. If you don't know me, obviously I am the host of the show, Ron Sparkman. If you're watching on Twitch, which is the Clear Skies Network, I am known as Ron Comet here, and the reason why I'm known as Ron Comet is that we were doing a live stream with Dustin, the CEO of OPT Telescopes, and the very first picture I ever took from one of the remote telescopes was a comet. And so ever since then, I've been Ron Comet. So that's been the running joke on the channel here. And we have a group of amazing people tonight. And instead of trying to do them justice, I wanted them to do so. So Chris, I'm going to go to you first. Introduce yourself. Let everybody know who you are, your interest in space and science, how you got into space art. Give us the story, man.
All right. Well, I'm Chris. I was born at a very early age, and I started having, I've lived in Huntsville, Alabama my whole life. So I've always, most of my life I've lived like within view of the Saturn 1 or the Saturn 5, depending on what year it was. Anyway, in my early mid-20s, I started having all these dreams of finding abandoned rockets. And so I just kind of got fascinated with rockets and aerospace again, since I was a kid. But yeah, so then kind of as a self-portrait in a way, I started doing these drawings of rockets that choose through them, and ended up making a whole series out of it. And then I started exploring further, and then just making friends within that community. And after I graduated school from graphic design, I ended up just doing my paintings and doing shows promoting those, and then I don't know. Yeah, I mean, I kind of realized it's a representation of like humanity and our internal condition, and like this outlet to be able to inspire other people to kind of think along the lines of dreaming again. That's about as best I could say it in a nutshell with that kind of time limit. So yeah.
No, and I mean, if you haven't checked out Chris's work, definitely go check it out. I'm on his Instagram right now, Ethereal Geometry, and the colors. I was mentioning it to him earlier, so he and I were on the phone for an hour and a half, 2 hours earlier, talking about different things. And wow, that was a quick question. Somebody wants to know if you will ever make a graphic novel.
I plan on doing a book of, once I get far enough into the series, I plan on doing a book of like a collection of all my works and the explanations behind them, just really go deep into my thought process behind everything. But I also am planning on doing, probably sooner, honestly, than the rocket stuff, I got this really weird series of these really wonky robotic creatures I've made that I call my ADHD Air and Space Zoo. And I'm probably going to do like a little, encyclopedia of all these creatures and strange vehicles, and just explain just all these random facts about them. And, it's really for laughs, honestly. I would say it's a kid's book, but I mean, half of little creatures are smoking cigarettes, and, but yes, I will eventually release a compiled book of all my aerospace work, as well as my ADHD Air and Space Zoo. But yeah, I'm open to suggestions too. So.
That's awesome. Snyder wants to remind me that I need to turn the lights down from the glare from my head is blinding. Digger did good. So for those that don't know why the curls are gone, I am a part of a really awesome platform called Passage that Lee Guillot created. And Snyder thought it would be funny if whenever I shave my head for this challenge that I put forth myself, if Digger, Dwayne Digger Carey, a retired astronaut that flew one of the Hubble repair missions, he's like, Digger should shave your head. I'm like, I don't know if Digger would be open to that or not. So I tagged Cheryl, Digger's wife, and she's like, "Oh, he would totally be down for that." So last night as it got colder and colder, Digger shaved my head. So that's the reason for the bald head. So we do ask that anybody, I'll throw it up a little bit later. But thank you. Kiwi said a really great one, and I'll talk about that here in just a second. But I'll throw the link up so that way people can help to donate to that. We're trying to raise $50,000 to get more STEM supplies from computers on down to kids in South America and help them and inspire them. And there's actually something really awesome that Mac does that we'll talk about here in just a bit. And so before we get to that, I want to go around the room and continue the introduction. So Kat, we'll go to you next. Give us an introduction. Tell us who you are and the cool stuff that you do.
Hi, so I'm Kat, or the Space Cat, as some of my friends have now started calling me. I am a manager of Ingram Sanitarium in Sunset Beach, North Carolina, and I'm excited to be teaching on Halloween.
And love the look tonight. So what are you? Like, I see that it looks like barbed wire, so...
Well, I'm kind of doing a little play on Sally. It's hard to see, but I've got Nightmare Before Christmas.
Now I see the shirt.
Yeah. So, and at work today, we did a Halloween program today. I had a Nightmare Before Christmas mask, so you couldn't see anything but my eyes. But it's kind of a little play on Sally, a little bit with her stitches.
I love it. So Kiwi says that Neil deGrasse Tyson video was good. I recommend doing more videos like that for more attention toward this YouTube channel. Kiwi, it's really weird that you mentioned that. That is a one-off thing. I did that video for a young friend of mine. He was 14 years old at the time, and I was meeting Neil for the first time, and I was like, I want to do something for this super awesome, bright young man that I know. And so we recorded that, and it's weird because this video is taken off. It only had about 1,000 views. And then for some reason, a few months ago, they started doing, I think to compete with TikTok, they started doing like the more, the story type stuff like Instagram has done, and they have that on YouTube, and they started promoting this video, and now it's got 250,000 views, and a bunch of people see it, and they keep asking about it, and it was never really meant to be for anybody else but for Chandler. I had Chandler write this this really awesome piece about seeing Neil for the first time, and I surprised him with this video, but it was on YouTube on the channel. So I never promoted it or told anybody about it. So it's weird that so many people are seeing it and subscribing to the channel. But Kiwi, if you get the chance, go back and look at the birthday live stream of Space Fam. Chandler, now 4 years later, was on his way to start college at ASU for physics, and I brought him onto that birthday show to tell Neil his story, and they had kind of a really great back and forth. So if you get the chance to watch that, I think you would really love it. But that's kind of the follow-up to that video that has now become viral-ish. I wasn't expecting that. So, but that's a little bit of that story. So next up, I want to go to our next awesome guest, and Ryan is great because Ryan is somebody we've never had on before. He is a science communicator in an entirely different area than what I do. But the reason why I followed Ryan's page is because my original love was paleontology, and he has an evolutionary biology page that he does, and it's really awesome. So, Ryan, introduce yourself. Let everybody know what you do and how you got into science communication on the side of just sharing this chain of life that we're all a part of.
Well, I was always interested in science when I was a little kid, and it kind of just grew from there. And I grew up watching Bill Nye the Science Guy and stuff like that. And so yeah, I was always interested in evolutionary theory. So and I noticed over time that there was a lot of misunderstandings of what evolutionary theory actually is and what it isn't. And I got some training in that area, and I got started the page and was trying to teach people about the theory of evolution and what it is, and try to remove myth and stigma around it and everything around it like that. But yeah, it's grown quite a bit actually, and I think I got like 3,500 likes now on that page now, something like that.
And I love what you do with the page itself. I like the where you compare us to where we came from. So it allows people to constantly see, like, here's where you are now billions of years later, but here's the way that you can see yourself connected through a timeline that, yep. That the things that were TikTok, crawled out of the ocean onto the shore, and look at its fin, hand, arm thing compared to what you have now, and look at how similar that is to you. Yes,
Yep.
yes, sir. And I love it too, and that's one of the reasons Ryan and I started talking, because my original love was paleontology. I read my godmother got me Jurassic Park, and I already loved dinosaurs anyway. It made me fall in love with it. And the second book, The Lost World, is still my all-time favorite book, and the second movie is my all-time hated movie because I won't go into that. Oh my God, it was awful. But Max heard the story before. Mac and I have talked about it. He's like, I get why you're mad about it. Yeah, go ahead, Mac. What were you gonna say?
Hey, did you watch the animated series?
No, okay, so you did tell me to watch the animated series. I've not seen it yet, but I'm going to.
It redeems
Okay,
everything.
fair enough,
You're
fair
not-
enough. But just a quick shout out to just Ryan's page and just the breakdowns, and he jumps all the way through the timeline of life on our planet and explains it to you in just a great way. Sometimes it's for fun, sometimes it's really in depth, and he just does a truly, truly wonderful job with it. So I'm glad to have him on tonight, and I'm definitely can't wait to talk to him about some of the stuff that I love. So Mac Attack, we're gonna go to you next. Tell us a little about who you are, how you fell in love with space and science. And the best part of this is that there is a really fun story that we're going to share about Mac and Janet that's been a year coming, and we get to do this live. So I'm super stoked about this.
Sure. I mean, I'm just a businessman by day, and with the passion for science and STEAM education, especially the space side of the STEM education, STEAM education. So I started attending all these conferences, and one of the ones that's happens to be close to me is the Humans to Mars conference that's usually in Washington, D.C. And over there, that's when I was inspired by people like Janet Ivey and Ellen Stofan, and when they told me people like us, especially with the means, to just go, don't talk about it, go do it. And I was like, okay. So I started my businessman by day, superhero by night business, which is combining my two passions, which is philanthropy and STEAM education, into one company, because I didn't see anyone else doing that. And 4 years later, now we have, a long story short, kids in refugee camps building CubeSats in tents, basically, and hopefully inspiring the next generation to win hearts and minds through STEM education.
Absolutely love it. And we're going to go into why that matters in a little bit. That's actually going to be a fun way to open the conversation, because I'm really excited about this. But before we get to that, let's talk to RBG yourself, Janet Ivey, president of Explore Mars. Janet's Planet does all kinds of amazing things. For the one person that may be watching the show that doesn't know who you are, Janet, let everybody know about you, how you got into teaching kids on this massive scale that you do, and all the awesome work that you're up to always.
You're so very kind. I am so delighted to meet all of you. Just to know that now that I know you, you will be getting an invitation to come and talk to my little Janet's Planet Astronaut Academy. Karina has appeared several times, and I believe that you're going to have a few teams participating in the AIAA rocket competition because of that. But so there's no one's ever going to ask me my business plan kind of model, because I didn't have one. My undergrad's in music and theater, so I love anybody who loves the art and finds very creative ways to explain science. But I was also a nerd who really super loves science. A shout out to my favorite ever teacher ever, Miss Ernestine Yarwell, my 5th grade teacher, who when I was 10 years old, she, Miss Carolyn Davis, super groovy lady with, they both had bell bottoms on, took us out on a Friday night in the fall and looked through a telescope and showed us the planets and Cassiopeia. And I fell in love with stars and space at that moment. So yeah, music and theater. How does a girl get there from here? I looked around. Right after college, I got hired at a theme park here in Nashville called Opryland. The day I walked in 1992, I was like,
a theme park, it's no big deal. This place is massive. It's crazy huge. It's nuts. It's all right. So I've seen resorts before, like Disney, but oh my God. So they took our entire show choir group when I was in high school, and we pulled into this place, and we walk in and we're like, this is supposed to be a hotel. Little kids from West Virginia, little Nitro, West Virginia, had absolutely no idea what was going on. Is that a forest over there? What is this? Where are we? We were so confused by where we were. It was amazing.
I still wish that was absolutely my favorite job. It was called the Opryland Kids Club. And when I walked into rehearsal that day, I was like, I love the kids and they love me. This is super fun. And so, hello, everybody. So anyway, after doing that job, but it was evident that the theme park side of Opryland Hotel was going to close. I looked around. The only people doing science were Bill Nye the Science Guy and Beekman's World, but there weren't any females saying, ha ha ha, I am going to do science. And I thought, that's where I'll plant my flag. I'll call it Janet's Planet, kind of like the Interplanet Janet Schoolhouse Rock song, but different. And yeah, so it began. I didn't really quite know how that was going to happen. It's too long a story to tell how it actually kind of still keeps evolving. But some way, somehow I created this little brand called Janet's Planet. And here we are in 2020 doing it. It kind of the genesis of, or when I got my trademark was around 1996. Not really knowing what was going to do it, but 20 years later, our first thing was in 2000. So this is our 20-year anniversary, and we're still going strong. And now we switched it to all virtual because we couldn't travel anywhere and do all the fun in-person stuff that we're doing. And I get some dandy letters almost every day from a parent or a kid who is getting turned on about doing something they love in space and science. We'll get into the story that Mac is talking about because it's very near and dear to me. But I found my way to explore Mars. I started volunteering 5 or 6 years ago, and last year they made me president. So it's just proof. Just keep showing up, kids. Just keep showing up. And they go, you know what? She's not going away. Let's give her a job. So that is my.
Did the same thing for me.
Apparently, they're weird enough to keep coming on. So why not just put them to work? So basically, all I can say is, find whatever your passion is, follow it, find people, go stand next to the greats, go stand next to the people that you want to be like and say, hi, can I be your friend? Is there any way I can serve you? And you'd be surprised how many people will say yes.
And we have a great question from Steiner Smith here. He says, I have a question for Judge Ginsburg. Is it called the Supreme Court because you all put tomatoes and sour cream on everything?
You know what? I don't really know the answer to that, and I'll have to look in my law books.
You have to get a check and just Supreme Nachos, Supreme Court, it makes total sense. I completely understand. So Snyder's that kind of guy. So it's like if you see something from Snyder, don't take him too seriously. In fact, he also said, also tell Deadpool Karina to keep her profanity down. I have kids in the room. So just letting you know, Karina, before you start. I don't honestly think I've ever actually heard Karina ever cuss before, so I don't think we're going to have to worry about it too much. But we're going to go to our next guest, introduce Karina. So Karina's actually had a change in careers recently. We met her because she worked with AIAA. She was...
AIA.
Wait, you were at AIA before and you're AIAA now, right?
I
Wait, I thought you said you moved organizations entirely.
No. I say moved what I handle.
Oh, I see. You just confused me then. That's fine. Okay, perfect. So, Karina, go ahead and let us know what you do, all the awesome work you do, and where you started, all the fun stuff. Because you also have a really cool story because you started prior to what you do now. You started. Everybody's talking about the fact that I'm bald now. Yes, we're all fully aware that I'm bald. We already discovered that. So you can back up and watch the replay later. But tell us a little bit because you started with cosplaying and working in a completely different area, very similar to myself, and then we're able to take all that and work it into what you do now. So kind of tell us the story a little bit.
Yeah, so I'll start where I currently am. So right now I'm the manager of unmanned and emerging aviation technologies with the Aerospace Industries Association, so AIA. And before that, I was a manager of strategic initiatives, which was kind of how I met Ron, because I was really focused on getting people to really know what the industry does. And I was unintentionally very active on social media. And that's because I used to do a lot of cosplay, a lot of like pop culture stuff, conventions, entertainment industry type of work. And then I just loved space and aerospace. And then somehow those two things started to mix into one. And next thing I knew, I was like on panels, speaking on pop culture and science fiction, which is like my loves coming in together. And so now it's been kind of constantly growing and evolving, and I can really bring that sci-fi and that nerdy stuff into what I do now, including even
I know Ron has told me to not cosplay at events, but including wearing things like my Star Trek uniform to different events or bringing together the different things that I do and that I love. So that's one of the best parts, is that I get to mix the two things that I love. And right now with my new job, it's very interesting because it's mostly aerospace, but there's some cool stuff that I do now with working with NASA and FAA on figuring out upper airspace traffic management. So that's been pretty awesome, because I've gone from being able to just advocate it for industry to getting to work on some of the real stuff that will affect industry. So it's been a really fun transition, and really thinking about how the upper airspace interacts and all that fun stuff. So basically anything that goes from like 400 feet to like 6,000 feet. It's been pretty awesome in the new transition. But my tag and everywhere is still Karina in Space. I think I need to figure it out how to include all of it, but we'll keep it at that for now. But yeah, anything sci-fi, pop culture, as you can tell, and aerospace. Yep. Hi, Amran. I can be a little mischievous, and you can guess that by to my pick. But yes, you guys haven't heard me like curse or anything, because I only stay at like 1 to 2 of these. I don't go past
2. That's it by 4 p.m. or so. So no, nothing wrong with that.
Hey, Ron.
And so before we dive into further into the conversation, we have Stardom patron, a patron, and candy connoisseur. Jason Feltz said he wanted to join tonight. He wanted to talk very intensely about candy corn, and he has a defense for candy corn. He's tired of everybody's trickery and shenanigans. So Jason wanted to jump in tonight, give us a quick breakdown of why he loves candy corn so much. So Jason, can you convince the world that candy corn is not the most obnoxious, disgusting thing on the planet?
You bet your sweet patootie. First of all, Ron, let's admire how much technology it takes to put sugar in wax. I mean, really, who thought of that? And how long did it take? And they didn't just stop that. You see, you have your standard yellow one with the orange in, but look at this, look at this, look at this. They managed to change this so they could make it taste like it was once in a delivery truck with a candy bar. And it does, slightly. And it's wonderful. It's the most versatile candy you have ever heard in your life. I mean, if it's Halloween and you have some candy corn, you don't have to worry about things. If you didn't have a Halloween candy costume, look at this. Look at this. There you go. You're very far. That's how long it took. If you're at a party, it's a little bit too loud. You don't know what to do.
The spit out killed me.
Hey, some people are diabetic for a reason. Now, you take all your candy corn, you just snap that bad boy off right here. Yeah, that's right. No party's too loud. No party is too rambunctious. You will be fine. Your hearing is completely protected at all times.
I mean, Jason, I think you make some good points there. Is that you shouldn't eat it, but it can be so many different things. Yes, Judge Ginsburg has something that she wants to add.
All right. I don't know that you've tried this or not, but if you put candy corn and mix that up with some salted peanuts and like kind of take a little bit of candy corn, a few little salted peanuts, it will taste like a payday bar.
What?
Truth. I'm not lying.
Is it that's yeah? So you got to take him back out again, Jason, before you continue the conversation. We can't hear you.
Has my audio dropped? My first time to use this. I'm not sure what's happening here.
We mix equal parts candy corn and salted peanuts, and
what?
Yeah, it's like a payday. Order in the court.
Hold on. Let me see what I can do this over this. I don't know what's happening.
So I gotta give some love to Jason. So Jason Feltz is actually one of my really, really good friends. He and I are both we're a couple of like 4, 5, 6 different people that are admins on Nerd News Network. We've been friends for years. He's a wonderful guy, and every single time I say that I need somebody to join for Space Fam tonight, he says something outrageous like, I'll be on Space Fam if I could talk about all the qualities of candy corn or something outrageous every single time. And so I was like, Jason, you got to do it. So that's probably going to be an ongoing bit there. But he's a wonderful guy. He really does love and enjoy space, and he cannot stand candy corn. He literally drove to the store to get candy corn to come on and kind of be goofy about it tonight. So Jason, I love you. Tell your little ones I said hello. He's with his kids, having a fun time tonight. So that definitely made my day. So Mac, I cannot believe of all the people in the world, the one thing I said was we can't really cuss on the show tonight, and you have to dress up as this guy as we continue to have the really fun conversation between you and Janet about why it's cool to have you both on the show tonight. So, Tony, calm down and realize and think about what you're saying before you say it.
I thought he was dressed as Ron Pre haircut.
Ron Preek haircut? You've never seen me with a mustache or chops, and my hair is a way better curl than that. Let's be honest, okay? So that's how I feel about it. But Mac,
This is awesome. I don't know how you don't miss it, man. Look at wow, this is right on, man.
I don't miss it at all.
No.
So what I was going to bring up is that so last year we were at the H2M conference, and Mac and I had a quick conversation, but we didn't really have the chance to truly kind of connect with each other, get each other's information, go back and forth. And he was telling me this awesome work that he was doing in Syria, and with refugees in different places. Janet and I were all in an Explore Mars meeting, maybe 2-3 weeks after, and Janet's like, there was this incredible person there. He's doing all this amazing work. I just really want to talk to this person. And I tried everything I could to find that person, but I couldn't remember Mac's name because I was filming documentary stuff. There was all this crazy stuff going on. And then we start doing drinks with Explore Mars. Mac shows up. We have no idea who he is. And finally, me and Mac are talking about the cool work he does. I'm like, oh my God, you're the person that Janet and I have been trying to find for more than a year. And it's just this really fun thing. So, Mac, I want you to give it a little bit more of a kind of an in-depth breakdown, and also how people can be involved with what you do with Borderless Labs, because I know that you're doing science communication in the Arabic language. You're looking to work with more people. We've talked about some connections. You actually are working with Yumna now, Majid, one of my favorite people in the world, one of my closest friends. But I want to get a little bit more depth in that. If you feel that you can tell the story sincerely with that get up on.
Oh, well, I can't promise you about sincerity, but right on, man. It's pretty simple. I mean, we know science communication, just like Janet just said, from people like Bill Nye the Science Guy and Mr. Wizard. So, and until Janet started Janet's Planet, there really was no science communicator. There were no female science communicators. So, and this is in English in the United States of America. So imagine the rest, and only 5% of the population of the world. So imagine the rest of the world. Now we're talking about, we hear things about like white privilege and upper class privilege and this kind of privilege and that privilege, but no one has ever discussed linguistic privilege. When you're talking to Janet, when you're on a Zoom call, and when you look at the comments and you see names like Mohammed, like Tapaswini, like Yumna, like Tyrone, like Patel and Singh, all of these names that are speaking and struggling to try to compose a sentence in a language that's not their native language, just because of their love for science. And the reason for that is they have no content in their own language. So I've been saying that since I was young, and I was always saying that, when I grow up, growing up in a business community, in a business language, it would be a perfect business opportunity to start documentaries in those languages because you have no competition. And of course, I went into business elsewhere. I'm losing my mustache. And so now that I finally have the means, and to, like I said, marrying those passions and being a business person, saying, well, why don't I try the business model of marrying those passions, of hiring people and putting them in those positions to create content. God, this is hard for you guys to take me seriously. And I'm really pouring my heart out here of creating content that's never been created before in their language for the first time, and giving it to hundreds of millions of people who speak that language versus the only way that they've ever gotten it before, which was reading 2 lines of text on the bottom of the screen translated. And if they're lucky enough to be in a country or in a language that invests a little bit more, then it's actually the middle-aged white guy still doing the documentary, but it's dubbed in their language. But still, that doesn't inspire the person to say, hey, I want to be like that person, because he doesn't look like me, doesn't speak like me, or she doesn't look like me or speak like me, or she's not a woman. So you put a woman in a shark cage to talk about sharks, wearing a scuba suit in her hijab, in her everything, and talking about sharks, then you don't ever have to talk about women's rights or girls' education or anything. She doesn't have to talk about that. She just has to talk about sharks while she's in the shark cage. And then hundreds of millions of other girls can say, hey, that can be me someday, because I saw someone who inspired me to be that person. And I was inspired to do this, and hopefully I can inspire the next person to do that. And then, it can go viral.
Which is just fantastic. And of course that led to, he shared this story with us, and Janet absolutely loved it. And it's like, can I possibly find this person, right? Yeah.
Well, it's like, as I recall, and again, when we're at these conferences, and it was my first year to be president, and Ron had just, like, I don't know, in the last 2 months become our kind of social media guy. So he was busy. As I recall that particular moment, and it was pretty profound for me, Ron says, hey, I want you to meet somebody. And then Mac begins to tell me that a speech that I would have given in 2016, where I said, hey, it's like, you want to inspire the next generation of space explorers, then go do it. Quit talking about it. Quit wishing for it. You go. And I was like, I said that? I did? I don't know. So then he tells me about his lovely work where he had gone to the Smithsonian and purchased these, kind of astronaut suits. And he's got a helmet and everything. And he's in these Syrian refugee camps. And my heart is full to bursting. And I think I was so taken with the story that it's like, it's like I went on to my next thing. And I was like, what is that guy's name? Ron, what is this guy's name? He's like, And so it wasn't until later, 4 years ago in 2016, I spoke on a Tuesday. I held a panel that night. The reason it's so vivid for me, the day after that particular Tuesday in 2016, I'm leaving Humans to Mars, headed to Puerto Rico to work with international students down there. I land in Puerto Rico and find out that my mother has passed away suddenly. And when Max shared that story, because for the 3 years from 2016 to 2019, I really beat myself up. I shouldn't have gone. I should have stayed with Mom. She had a surgery the week before. She passed away of a pulmonary embolism. And I just beat myself up. But it was a few days later, Mac, and I tried to find, it's buried too deep in the ether on Facebook, where I realized the gift of that story, the gift that you were to share that with me, is that the last thing that my mom said to me that Tuesday morning, because I said, Mom, I don't know if I'll get a chance to talk to you until I get to Puerto Rico on Wednesday. And so, but I've got this, I've got to speak, I've got to work with the Boy Scouts in the afternoon, I've got to do an education panel Tuesday night. And the last word she said to me, you go do what you're like supposed to. Oh, I remember asking her, Mom, since you've just gotten out of this surgery, I can cancel. I've got a colleague who will take my place to do the speech. I'm all covered. She's like, don't you dare stay at home. You go do what you're supposed to do with those children. Yes, ma'am. And the last thing that she said to me that Tuesday morning was, go have fun on your adventure. And when Mac, you shared that story with me that afternoon, it didn't quite compute, right? I'm taking it in. I'm more enraptured by the work that you're doing. And I remember you telling about, you were so surprised that a kid knew a space fact. And you're like, how did you know that? And she was like, when I can get to a computer, I Googled it. And I'm thinking, here's a kid in a refugee camp who's Googled space facts. Again, my heart was full to bursting, but it really wasn't until after I got home last year from Human to Mars, and it was the anniversary of my mom's passing, that all of it clicked together. And I realized that following my mom's good advice, you just go do what you're supposed to do for those children and have fun in your adventure. And I thought, it's like, isn't it profound how it's like tend to be, if we stay open to however you guys, how universe, Buddha, Muhammad, whomever, whatever source is, or whatever, like, even if it's just like, hey, I'm supposed to do this. I really felt so very moved that I had been exactly where I was meant to be. And if there was some kid in a Syrian refugee camp that was putting on a space helmet because my mother said, you go and do what I know you're supposed to be doing, that was one of the most huge gifts anyone could have given me. And so I have spent nearly a year trying to figure out who is the guy in the Syrian refugee camps. So when Ron finally put all of this together, I literally was like, finally. So I cannot thank you enough. You honored my mom and you honored her good words. And I hope that you always have fun on your adventure.
Oh,
No big deal, Mac. No big deal at all.
I don't know how to respond to that other than saying I'm very sorry about you losing your mother, but it's just so heartwarming to hear, you know, the whole story. And it's funny, I even forgot the details of the conversation until you just now reminded me how I met this girl named Budur. And she wasn't supposed to be part of that program. She wasn't in that. It was called the Relief International school, that private little school by the UN that they were running over there. We just had all these kids. We finished the STEM program, and they were just wearing the suits and changing just to get their pictures taken with the suits. And there's this commotion going on at the door, because there were a lot of kids from the refugee camps. They just wanted to see all these Americans, the NASA people. Some of them even start, you know how rumors just grow. They wanted to see the astronauts. Then all of a sudden, you know, it just grows and grows and grows. There were these weird people in the refugee camp. And then this one girl, she just wanted to see the NASA people. And I went up to the door and said, well, just let her in. If she's so passionate about wanting to see, you know, people who can talk about space, then yeah, let her in. And then she was like crying that, you know, she finally got in. And I said, go ahead, here. You want to wear, you know, an astronaut suit? Sure, let's get your picture taken with an astronaut suit. And the biggest smile on her face, it's all over our website. And then she starts talking to me and everyone else about pulsars and quasars and black holes and globular clusters. And guys, I didn't know what a globular cluster was. And I'm like,
Still trying to figure it out, if he's being honest.
how do you know this stuff? And she's like, from the Google.
I remember that clear as day, Mac. You were telling me
about
that.
it until you just reminded me now.
No, that was like so profound. And then you had a kid. The conversation, I'm telling you, is imprinted in my mind. It would be days later that I would connect all the dots of the timing of like all those things. But I remember you saying that there were a few kids who kind of like did not want to get out of those spacesuits that you had brought with you.
Oh my goodness.
And
well, a little bit of an update on that story. 3 weeks after that, after we were in that refugee camp, all of the United States funding for Relief International was canceled for obvious reasons. I know no politics, no religion on this show, but that school had to close. And she was forced to do either one of two things. Do what you either get married off because that's kind of how the culture, for your own safety, basically, or you go to complete high school outside of the camp in a public school, or you homeschool yourself. Well, she homeschooled herself, and she got an 89 out of 100, which is very high in Jordan. But she never went to university because obviously she can't afford it. And that when I followed up with them later on, she was just at home, not working or doing anything, and passed with high grades, and they were actually considering marrying her off until, I said, hey, what if I offer you a job doing science communication? And so long story short, now she's actually doing science education on our YouTube channel with doing fill plates, crash course astronomy from
I got you
in the Arabic language with top-notch augmented reality and real good high quality. So every single picture is documented, referenced in the scientific method, and finally got her into a college. She is studying, she's an engineering student right now, and finally got, now that the UN has discovered what she's doing in terms of science education, they're actually taking the bill, and they're funding her complete scholarship. So so that knock on the door, her trying to force herself through that door to see these people talk about space, look where it's led her now. And that's just one of the success stories. And we haven't even talked about Yumna or Muntasir or the other ones.
It's so lovely. And listen, Badur, wherever you are, I have no doubt, just like the many kiddos that I know, whether it's Hashim in Pakistan or Tapaswini in India, and Adia down in Texas, or Ander, Jesse, and Lucas, and Maggie, and Evie, and all the kids that I could name. It's like these kids, it's like, let me just tell you, the world's in fine shape. It should be run by children. In fact, it should probably run by this 7-year-old named Lucas in New Jersey. He's fantastic. So yeah, it's like, I have no doubt, Badur, if you're listening or get a chance to, you're already changing the world. And who knows, you might have a Nobel Prize winner on your hands, Mac.
From Justice Ginsburg herself. I mean,
what better way can you say? Well, I also have this person here who said, I mean, if there's anybody that can do it, it's the late great RGB. So I want to talk to Karina a little bit because she's also doing some really incredible programs, reaching out and connecting with this rocket competition that she's been doing. And I don't want to dive into details too much. I do know that she's been on your show, Janet, to talk about it. She's been all over. So share with us, Karina. Tell us all the cool stuff that you're doing with that. And I know that we are fortunate enough to get a little bit of a tease of something else that you're working on.
Yeah, but before I talk about all of that, I also want to talk a little bit about how Mac is so giving, and I also have a story of how I met him was because of how he cares about the next gen, and that was I
didn't know you were going to cry on Halloween, did you? Ha ha, tricked you.
No. This is the real scary thing, emotions. But like seeing
I want to put that on a t-shirt, Karina.
but seeing Mac's background, he has this Apollo 11 poster, and so a lot of you probably saw the Apollo 11 documentary where they graphed footage from like the actual launch and the way up to the launch and created this really incredible movie. So we were hosting a premiere of it with the Air and Space Museum here in DC, and we had the opportunity to work with Bill Nye and thinking about like how do we get people interested in blah, blah, and also how do we fundraise maybe some money for both the Planetary Society, but also wanted to mix it with another cause. And so I automatically thought, oh, why don't we do the Brooke Owens Fellowship? You know, they give all these incredible opportunities to young women, and they are also the reason why I'm in this industry. I met my mentor through that fellowship, who introduced me to the person who was my boss before my current position. So I thought, incredible opportunities, let's do this. And Mac was the person who won that giving challenge basically, and came to the premiere and was Bill's guest of honor. And it was just kind of like, that was my first interaction with him, is like him being basically the top person to give for this event and for like to help fund some more opportunities for women. So kind of like awesome things that he's doing. And so I saw the poster in the background. I was like, oh, I need to also tell people that he's pretty cool. But besides doing that type of stuff with work, with finding different opportunities on how to get people interested in our industry, one of them is with the rocket contest we run. It's the American Rocketry Challenge. But if you go on Google and look up rocket contest, will be the first thing that pops up. And it's basically this competition where kids from grade 6 through 12 create teams between 3 to 10 people, and they build and launch rockets. And they are incredibly intelligent, and every year we get their engineering notebooks, and it's just incredible to see what they can do. The top 100 teams come out to Virginia and then compete, and the top team goes internationally to compete to represent the US against France, the UK, Japan, and I think we're adding a different country now. We'll keep you guys updated, but it's an incredible opportunity. And also, like, the international trip is completely paid for by one of the sponsor companies, so it's a really awesome opportunity for students. But also, even if you don't make it all the way there, creating those teams, designing your rocket, building your rocket, launching it, it's like an incredible opportunity, and it really gets you hands-on early on. So it's one of the best things that I've gotten to work with when it comes to work. And during the pandemic, we had to cancel it, so we didn't really know what to do. So I thought about a game I like to play, which is Kerbal Space Program, and I connected my work with a game I love to play. And we hosted a virtual competition where we partner with Kerbal Space Program to talk about, like, how can we host a competition online. And the kids loved it. It was like the weirdest, fastest project I've ever put together. It basically putting together the rules, the structure, and everything in 3 weeks to launch it for the kids. It was crazy, but we knew it was worth it because we wanted the kids to have something to do, especially since I know the world just was crazy. I mean, the world is still crazy, but we wanted to make sure that they had something to do with our industry. And so it was a great opportunity. Plus, we got to give a bunch of free copies of the game, which was really awesome for me because I've always loved gaming.
I'll take a free copy if you still got one, Karina. Let me know.
Not in the contract, Ron.
Oh, okay, fair enough.
You're not a kid. Well,
that's debatable.
Yeah, it's debatable. But so that was one of the cool things. And right now I'm actually working on launching something really special for underrepresented college students and community college students. And we should be announcing that at the Ascend conference. I highly recommend you attend. It's been what I've been calling my late night baby, because after work, I take a little break, make some dinner, and then I come right back to my computer to get this new project started. And it'll be opening some opportunities for underrepresented students to join our industry. And we won't tell you what underrepresented means. You just tell us how you feel underrepresented in the industry, and we can go from there. And I'm very excited because it won't just be about students coming into industry, it'll also be about industry going into different communities, because it'll include a fun community project for each student that gets involved. So I'm super excited about that, and I'm really excited when I can actually talk about this fully.
And if you want to, make sure to share with us, and we can put it out there a little bit later. Once you know details, when it finally goes live, I'll mention it on one of the shows in the future and gladly tell everybody about it. But obviously, I'll get to what Mac is wearing here in a minute. I'm actually kind of sort of creeped out a little bit. We'll get there in a few. But I mean, Kat, I know obviously working with kids is a big part of what you do. We both work in museums, and you love to connect in that way. So obviously we're in kind of a strange time right now with everything that's going on. How are you all reaching out and connecting? Because we're trying to figure out new things at Space Foundation with the Discovery Center. We actually had a wildly successful Mad Science Day today. We're starting to get more people come in because people are understanding that the safety precautions are in place. And is there anything in particular that you're excited about that you're doing at the planetarium? Is there anything that you're doing to reach out because you can't have people in yet? Tell us a little bit about kind of what you're up to connect with all the awesome work you do.
Yeah, so in the planetarium field, we were definitely given a challenge with the pandemic, as was everyone. But for us, we are essentially a theater, and theaters are in some ways high risk environments, depending on how you handle the situation. So there are still planetariums all over the country that are still closed. We were actually able to open with very reduced capacity this month, which I'm very excited about. It's gone really well from all accounts. We hold about 84. Normally, we're down to 24, so it's a big reduction in capacity. But there's still a great void, especially with students. So it was already kind of difficult for students to get into the planetarium in the last several years. Field trip experiences are very unattainable for a lot of schools all over the country. Some schools are very lucky, especially the ones in urban areas where they can reach a place like a science museum or a planetarium really easily. But schools out in rural areas, they don't get field trips. They don't get to go to museums. They don't get to go to planetariums because the cost, even if it's a free experience at a place like ours, the cost of just having the busing is very prohibitive. So with the pandemic, it kind of put a fire under some of us, me included at my organization, how to take the immersive experiences that we bring in a planetarium theater and bring it to people at home or in a small classroom environment. So a lot of us are exploring virtual reality. You know, we are in an age where virtual instruction is possible. If this had been 100 years ago, this would be a very different conversation. So how do we translate the immersive experiences from our domes into a VR environment? So one thing my organization in particular is trying to get started is converting those experiences to VR format and then loaning out VR goggles to students that are either at home or students that are in small pods. A lot of students are in hybrid instruction models where they're in school a couple of days with 8 or 10 peers. So can we take what we offer in the Dome Theater and move it to VR goggles that we can actually loan out to schools? And even when the pandemic passes and subsides, I think it will be a huge resource because, again, we've been struggling to reach schools in our community for a while now. So it really was just an added push to get us moving in this direction. And it can't replace our theaters. There's just something magical about a planetarium. But in terms of getting children immersive experiences to excite them and make science relatable, I think VR is a really good.
I think that, yes, please, Janet, go ahead.
And I love that word immersive. I mean, back in March when I realized everything from my live show and space camp calendar was just falling like dominoes and things weren't going to happen, I sort of went and just kind of was beta testing what that would be like to what can really relate. What do kids want? What will they gravitate to? How can we do this? So I love the word immersive because I would love to know if you found this to be true for the kids who maybe have come multiple times and experienced some of your programming multiple times. I found just as often, it's like you got to make it interactive, you've got to make it immersive, you've got to make it exciting, but you also, some of these kids are just looking for community, especially even the kids in the spring to watch them now. And I just think that education has forever been changed in the year that is 2020. Preach. And any of the things that you're doing with VR or AR, or, you know, introducing them to space experts or anything like that, it just broadens their horizons in a way. And, you know, I was able to do it for a super rural community in Americus, Georgia. The Rotary Club paid for a lot of these kids that wouldn't otherwise have had a chance to come in person to something. And it was a phenomenal thing. But I'm really digging the word immersive, because I think that's what it is. It's like kids are now so used to this kind of ubiquitous thing of Zoom. They're like, yeah, it glitched. They'll be back, whatever. But I love that word. And if there's ever any way that the old Janet's Planet, when she's not in the RGB outfit, can help you, I'd certainly come in and do the show for you.
Oh, that's awesome, Janet.
No surprise, Janet's happy to hop in there and connect with people. So we talked a lot about obviously the ways that, you know, we can connect with kids from all different backgrounds. But Chris and I were having a really fun conversation before we got on tonight, and he mentioned that his art for him is to give us all back that way that we looked at the world as an adult, to kind of see that again. See that world again. So many of us lose it as life goes on and we all get jaded. We start to lose that, and that's something that he puts into his art. And what I mentioned was that a lot of the pieces that I've seen of his, is that even if it's an animal or you're looking out at something, you're always looking out it up, like that state of wonder when you were smaller and the world was just this big giant thing. And it's an awesome piece of what I've seen in just a little bit that I've looked through his art. And I know it's a big piece for you, Chris. So I kind of want to talk about that a little bit, about your process and how that connects to you, and why that's the way that you chose to do this. And there's something like I was mentioning. If you haven't seen his work yet, again, I'll put the link. It will scroll across the bottom so you can see his stuff on Instagram. It's that even with bright colors, there's still almost this eeriness and this. Okay, so whenever the 80s came out and we had all the awesome movies like Legend and Labyrinth and all this, there was this magic to the world. And it's very much within the art that he has, and I love that look and feel and style. And I kind of want to talk with you a little bit about, Chris, how you create this and how you want us all to look at the world like that again. And you do it through space and a million different things. So I'm excited to talk to you about that.
Yeah. Well... So, you know, a couple of things that to kind of help y'all understand just right off the bat. I'm a huge clown. I'm the mischievous kid in class who never quite grew up.
Same.
And yeah, I'm a class clown, and I'm always making a joke out of anything and everything. I mean, I remember one day my dad leaning over to me and in church and suggesting that so-and-so across the sanctuary looked like Peter Griffin. And, I couldn't hold it together. But at the same time, I grew up, with very serious movies and music tastes, like favorite movie was always Terminator 2. It's got that really deep, dark vibe to it. And favorite band was always Rush. And, but here I am, that goofy kid who just makes a joke out of everything. But so having those repetitive dreams of finding abandoned rockets everywhere, to me, it was like finding, man, you're looking at all my recent stuff. Look at my,
well, I'm going to go back, man, while you're talking. You take your time, and I want to show everybody the awesome stuff you do.
Yeah, that's cool. That's cool. Yeah. So finding these abandoned rockets in my dreams, it felt like it was super eerie, like stumbling onto like almost something monolithic, but fascinating. And in a way, as represented through my art, it felt like a sense of rediscovering who I am, or rediscovering abandoned parts of my personality or my dreams that I have given up on or allowed others to convince me to let go of. And, so the trees growing through everything was a representation of kind of like seeds that people had planted to me early on, dealing with parents with addictions, dealing with, abusive step parents and, manipulative, systems that, whether it be well-intended schools and churches or, whether it just be people who had no idea who I was or what I was meant for, it, in a lot of ways, it felt like finding my own individuality, again. And, but then there's this part of me that's like, I really love working with kids. And, when I'm locked away for too long, what ends up happening is the people in my life that I miss the most are the kids in my life. My best friend's 3 kids, my other friend's 11-year-old son who hangs out in my studio. And, there's just something about that innocence and that childlikeness that in a way feels like that sense of adventure that still feels prevalent in those dreams, but at the same time feels like, it feels like that abandoned rocket that, before it got abandoned, before it got lost. And almost like I just want to protect that when I see these kids, and at the same time, I want my work to evoke that sense of, I miss feeling that way. I'm like a sense of when they look at it, they say, man, I remember what I was like back then. Because realistically, I believe that who we really are deep down is who we were as kids. And the only difference is what the world has convinced us that we're not anymore. And I want so bad for when people look at my work, they're reminded of who they really are deep down to the core. And Yoshi.
I'm digging that. Yeah, dude, I'm digging the Yoshi for real. That's awesome.
Yeah, look at the kid I gave that one to.
It's just a couple down. Okay, let me see if I can find it here real quick. Oh, I see him. I see him.
Yeah. That's my old studio mate's 7-year-old, and I gave that to him for his birthday. So now his brother and sister, I've got to do a pink and purple kitty cat for the.
Let's see, I want something similar to that. I know somebody I'm probably going to get that for Christmas. I'll have to talk about that.
Cool. Yeah, cool. Yeah, and then for his older brother, I got to do a Zelda scene with his new puppy in the picture, and his face instead of Link's. But if I can find a way to not make that one look weird, but yeah, like. I just see this art as kind of like an illustration of, to kind of take you into that world that I experienced in my dreams, where that sense of rediscovery, that sense of amazement, that sense of like almost stumbling onto something you shouldn't be stumbling onto. And then, because the world doesn't want you to, and then that was my Halloween costume last year. I was going to redo that this year, but then Vertigo hit. But honestly, I just want my work to be a journey back into who we really are. And when I'm with kids, it's like I want to teach them or help them understand who they really are and the power of the dreams that they hold and their imagination and cause them to just understand to not let go or let anyone talk them out of that childlike enthusiasm. And that one's called Lunacy. The title's a play on the word lunacy. But honestly, I think that all the Russian built stuff is just so beautiful artistically. Because it's so strange. That one I call Union, which is what Soyuz means, and it's kind of, or no, I call that one Progress, which is no, that is Union. Okay, Progress is the other version of it that I'm working on. But yeah, so does that make sense? Like Any other questions about that? Like,
Yeah, it absolutely. I mean, the fun part about this is that the private chat is everybody's just like, "Oh my god, your art's amazing."
Oh.
So, what I kind of want to take away from this is that if anybody wants to like talk to Chris about this, you were Mac. I love you. You just keep showing up in different ones, but I mean, there's. By the way, I don't think we were only at like fall of last year for Chris's work. With all that you saw, we're not even. I don't even think we're at a year back yet with all the stuff that he does, and it's incredible. And there's a lot of what I've seen that I love. And again, it's rare that you see something. And you know what? And it's a weird thing, kind of to say this because he's such a legend, and not a weird thing, but I mean, I guess a great compliment is it kind of reminds me a little bit of like Van Gogh's work. Like it's this really bright, incredibly beautiful colors that he put into his work, but he was also expressing like the pain of the things that he had dealt with and what he thought was missing in the world, and how he took that pain and put it out there, but in a different way, like through space and through animals and connecting people. It's beautiful, and it's like it's eerie in the best way of just imagine walking through the woods where 500 years in the future, and yeah, go ahead, Karina, please.
I was going to say the last one that you kind of showed, where there was a little kid staring up into the tree, and one of the trees was the rocket, just brought me completely back in a little girl. I used to imagine that I would travel through time and space, partially why I left Doctor Who, because when I saw it, I was like, incredible. But I used to use this little tree that was like on the side of my house by the entrance of the car entrance, and it was my spaceship. So it's just like seeing that like brought me back to like childhood. So everything that he was talking about was like automatically brought in, and I already messaged.
And Chris, I'll go back to you. I know there was something you wanted to mention there.
well, yeah, I think something I didn't mention before, which to me, someone just messaged me a really weird comment. Yeah, so not a comment about this, but a really weird text. Anyway, to me, it's just that people always use big words like juxtaposition, and so I'm going to attempt to use that word. But it's kind of a juxtaposition of like the eerie with the whimsical, the dark with the dreamy, and kind of like what we have in the shows like Stranger Things, which I think that's why it's so appealing to us, because it takes us back to that childlike wonder and that, how scary the world is, but that sense of purpose and that sense of exploration. And I mean, I just watched the movie Explorers the other night for the first time after a musician friend of mine made an EP based on the movie, based on how it made him feel. And I've had lots of conversations with him about that, and his music has gone into my work so much. Like I listen, if you ever get a chance to listen to Rykard on Spotify, Rykard, it's so dreamy, but it has that dark edge to it that I just love so much, which I have on a playlist that I call Minefield of Dreams. But the music I listen to is like, I listen to stuff that makes me feel like those dreams that I was having. And a lot of it's dark, a lot of it's dreamy. But it's just that combination of mystery, that makes it feel mysterious, that I think makes it appealing. I use, like, for instance, I want to do a series with the test stands out on the Arsenal, the S1C stand and the dynamic test stand and the T-Tower. Well, fun fact, the T-Tower out on the Arsenal here in Huntsville, it's got trees growing in it. And like, it's mothballed and it's that old. I'd love to see what it would look like 100 years from now if they don't tear the thing down. Like a lot of them, they want to tear down to make room for the new stuff without realizing the artistic and historical value of what they built back in the 60s. And I want to explore those towers so much. I want to do a series based on that, where the Arsenal, the whole area is flooded, and these stands are just sticking out of the water, and they're covered in this neon graffiti, and almost like imagining what would someone mentioned earlier that kids should be running the world, and I 100% believe that. Like, imagine if all these things were taken over by kids, and what they'd get turned into, and what it would be like to be at those places. Like, imagine the S1C static test stand covered in graffiti with zip lines everywhere, and an observatory, like a makeshift observatory built into the top. Like, God, I want to go there. Like, I get carried away talking about that, but
No, man. It's completely okay. And like I said, I know there's from comments here, like in the private chat, I know that a few people want to talk about it, but it does, man. It brings me back to the stuff that I grew up when I was younger, watching a film like Legend, where I remember it just being this beautiful thing, and you're just there. It's Tom Cruise and I forgot what Mia something, and it's just all this really beautiful thing, and then they kind of show the devil and just everything that goes kind of through that. But fantasy films were just this thing that I don't think we have enough of anymore. Dark Crystal was terrifying, and also this beautiful thing that connected you in a way. And your art reminds me a lot of that. That's what we were talking about earlier. Like, I love it's the bright colors while still having that. Imagine walking through a forest in this kind of dreamlike state and running into this. I would love to see like an incredible filmmaker take the art. But I'm going to hire Chris. I want you to create this stuff, and then try and see them put that on film. But I don't want to take this for me. So I mean, if it's okay, like Chris will let you, if you want to. But Kat and Janet both want to pick your brain about something. Do you want to say your thoughts first, and then we'll go to them, or would you like to?
All I was going to say is when you mentioned the color scheme, the eerie color scheme, all my dreams took place around golden hour, and so every time it's like 5, 6 in the afternoon, and sun's not quite set, but everything's golden. I'm like, I cannot help but everywhere I go in Huntsville, just feel like my dreams. I mean, it's just the weirdest feeling, but. Especially if you go to like really empty, desolate places in town, and see the mountains in the Arsenal. It's like, yeah. Anyway, next comment.
Yeah, no. I mean, but they're actually coming to you, so Kat will go to you first, and then Janet, and then once we get through these, I really want to talk to Ryan about the amazing work that he does with Eva Bio and how he connects with people. But Kat, you first, then I want to go to Janet, and then I don't know what's going on with Mac. Who knows what happens there?
I wish there was a bubble above his head so I could see what he's thinking.
Kat, we'll head to you first.
Yeah, so hearing Chris talk about his work, Chris, I feel this intersection of two major ideas that actually guide us a lot in science education. One is the concept of how much the human imagination actually sparks scientific discovery, exploration, and development. And it took me back, looking at the rockets in particular, it took me back to a lot of research I had to do in celebrating the 50th anniversary of Apollo 11 last year. So in celebrating that achievement, I did a deep dive into the origins of rocketry. The very earliest inspirations for rockets were in art and novels in the 19th and early 20th century. So that immediately came up for me in looking at your work. But also in science education in particular, there is this idea that we as a society often squash scientific exploration by training children to stop playing, basically. And there's this huge wave of revolution in education now where if we can encourage children to keep playing into middle school, high school, and adulthood, that actually will help increase science engagement. Because all scientists do at their core, we're a bunch of tinkerers and players, and we like to push buttons and see what happens is really what we're all at our core. And when children are taught to stop that process, that's when the inspiration dwindles and fades away.
Yeah, I mean, I totally think that now it's even worse than ever when they're told, you can't go play outside because what if you get kidnapped, or the world's not safe anymore like it was back in my day, or they say things like, here's your cell phone, knock yourself out, and then there's just so many things that keep kids indoors now. You know, like I'm not trying to be one of those boomers saying, you know, them, you know, kids these days. No, it's more like technology these days has ruined the spirit of youthfulness. You know, does that make sense?
Well, to that point, Vanderbilt did a study a few years back that says 10 is the new 15. And so the age of innocence is lessening. If any of you guys have watched The Social Dilemma, it's like the very people who've created the things that keep us connected and do help us communicate our messages are also some of the undoing of us. But I will tell you, there's a great quote, and Kat, this builds on what you're talking about perfectly. Tony Wagner of Harvard wrote a book called Creating Innovators, basically the young people, the young people who change the world. And in it, he says that we must let our children play. And in the midst of their play, they may very well find their passion. And then in the midst of their passion, they may very much well find their purpose. And so, I mean, Chris, all I can say is that when I see your stuff, I see Chesley Bonestell. I see this fun. I see this frivolity. I see something provocative. I see the dark and the light and that intersection or juxtaposition, as you were talking about. And I think it's beautiful because art should invoke and create, kind of evoke something within us, and whether that's terror or surprise or kind of like a jolt of reality or a bit of whimsy or all of that combined together. I just will tell you though, I'm like last week, I literally worked with over 400 kids virtually. And it's like, it is incredible. They are hungry. They are expressive. They want to teach you things. One of the things that we have begun to do in my little Janet's Planet Astronaut Academy is to give kids the chance to be the teachers. I was showing somebody that Evie taught me how to make some very cool origami claws. Awesome. So we had her, she's very interested in origami. So we gave her the first kind of like bit of class to teach us origami. Lucas loves roller coasters and this game called Kahoot. And so he wanted to show us how to make a Kahoot. And then he had us play his game about roller coasters. And he mentioned, he's 7 years old and he's mentioning Newton's third law. So again, it's just like, I think it's just creating the space. Yeah. And your art seems to do that. Let's create the space, kids, where we invite you to stand in your inherent magnificence. And that doesn't matter whether you're an artist or a scientist or a biologist or biotech or a science communicator or an actress or whatever it is that you are. We want to encourage you to stand in that inherent magnificence. And I think at the heart, I think that's why I love teaching space so much, is because it connects all of those things, whether it's art or drawing or bio, whatever. But again, it's kind of this invitation to connect with that star stuff that we are and go out there and go supernova however we can.
It's an invitation for everybody to be amazed all together. And it's that infinite. And so I was going to say, when you were saying that, I don't know if you've been to space camp or not. A lot of what you talked about sounds like you'd be perfect for like you'd be the type of person to chaperone a bunch of teams. But have you?
I have been to space camp, and I actually have sent many a kid to space camp.
Yeah.
I've never
They
been.
might have been on my team.
That would be super fun.
I was gonna say there's a good chance that I could have had one of your kids on my team, but my favorite part.
Extremely high chance. If you knew the tens of thousands, it's going to be near 100,000 plus kids that Janet's been in front of now. So I would not be shocked, man. Yeah. She's incredible.
And the thing about space camp is that when I worked there as a camp counselor, before I was a photographer there, my favorite part was when I would take them to the Saturn V hall and I would stand in front of the doorway and talk about the engines of the Saturn V, and then lead them in. And the first thing they see is the giant back end of the Saturn V, those huge engines. my favorite part about working there was the sound of the whole team going, whoa. Imagine a bunch of 9-year-olds just being amazed by that. Like, I want to feel that again. I want adults to say that again. I want to cause people to feel that again.
Well, let me assure you, my friend, you did so with your art tonight. It's lovely.
Thank
Really.
Agreed. And so the next thing I want to talk about in depth here is Ryan's work. So there's not a whole lot that we get in the space industry. We get the flat earthers and we get people that will deny that stuff. But Ryan's in the realm that where I grew up in West Virginia, there are still schools that will say they will not teach evolutionary biology. What Ryan does is not an easy thing. There is, and again, this isn't anything against beliefs or, you believing what you want to believe, but there's a difference between belief and scientific fact, the thing that we can prove, that we can say there's this out there. And Ryan does this on a day-to-day basis where he shares these things and it has to deal with a battle back and forth of people coming in. And there's nothing unkind about what he does. He just wants to show the connection between all of us. And I think before many of us really get to the point of being fascinated by space, like you can see it, but you don't really get what you're seeing when you see the Milky Way at 4 or 5. But I guarantee if you went to the ocean or you were out in a ship and you saw a dolphin, you were fascinated by that. Or when you heard about what kids do not love and are not obsessed with dinosaurs. I still am. And this is something you do on a day-to-day thing, Ryan. So I kind of want to talk to you a little bit about, one, your process of putting this out there first, like how you create your content constantly and you're always putting it out there, and what that means to you, and what your goal is to help educate people with this work that you do.
Well, most of what I do is, or most of what I put out there is just from my own knowledge on the topic, and my goal is to just educate the public on, remove all the straw man arguments from creationists that try to make people doubt the theory of evolution through various bad arguments that are already out there. So that's my.
And so, I mean, so you work this and you do it in a number of wonderful ways. How do you combat the back and forth? Like, how do you do it? Because I don't think I've ever seen you angry in a comment section when you'll put something up there and say, here's what it is, and then you'll break it down, and then people might go into it, like, in depth, but you always handle it in a way that not many people can, with a straight face, or just want to strangle people. And I totally get that. I mean, because I don't know, had somebody not handed me a fiction book, had somebody not handed me Jurassic Park, that I would have ever really known it. And then to be in a place where quite literally every single person around me, had you said, well, of course the world's older than 6,000 years old. There was nobody that told me that. There was nobody in a science class that told me that. Our biology teacher, Lover, dealt with some issues, and so she wasn't an amazing educator. But that's what you're doing, and you're doing this on your own free time outside of your work. And I think that's a really big thing. So, I mean, how do you deal with that day to day constantly and still keep putting in that work?
Well, my blood pressure definitely goes up when I'm debating certain people that doubt the validity of evolutionary theories. But I just definitely try to keep my calm and use logic and reason to persuade my opponent any way I can. I mean, evolutionary theory is the fundamental grand unifying theory of biology. So, I mean, it's just like quantum field theory, I mean, it explains everything, and I want to share that with the world, and how evolutionary theory connects all of life on the planet. Because there's probably, like, today 20 million species on the planet, and all of them can form this grand unifying tree of life.
It's one of the most beautiful things in the world. I mean, whenever I was growing up, and to hear, well, and again, so it was Baptist was really kind of the thing, and that, we were born from this and so on. But then to find out that, we are, I think it's like 72% of genetic material we share with a banana. Like, and it's like, it's all those little things. I think, and please correct me if I'm wrong, Ryan. Is that right?
40.
Okay,
It's
50 to
around
60%.
50,
I'm sorry. Well, I'm
yeah,
trying to think of the ones that I've heard over the years where I see the memes that go out, and I love those. But the people that are scared or worried of that are the things that you won't deny that, but you have no problem denying that. But then you say that you understand that this universe is this great, amazing thing, and that's like, we did come from that. Okay, you believe that, but we can tell you that 6,000 light years away is very definitely the cosmic backyard. Like, you just kicked a rock down the road. And to think that that's all that there is, when we have billions of years of life here and we're all connected. And I think it's one of the reasons that we all love Attenborough so much. His films always come out. And the big one for me, because when I sat down to watch the original Cosmos series, I didn't believe in aliens, and I definitely believe in God. And by the end of that series, it flipped. And it was this thing about the connection of that when they went to an episode 1 or 2 down the road where they started discussing how life evolves. And one of my favorite parts of that was they take the black bear and how it evolved into the polar bear, and how it took a black species and it became a white species. And it pretty much just said, here's your idea of race and what these things are. And I just couldn't believe it. And also, it was just this truly beautiful thing as it connected us to the tree of life. That is so much more beautiful. Like, I think I would find that hard to be able to deny that if someone told me that if you believe in that, you can't believe in this other thing. And it's not believing in it. It's like, we have evidence for this. It's one of the most beautiful things that you can see, your connection to all life here and beyond just this planet. We've only been here for a third of the universe. And how amazing is that? Who knows what was out there 4.5 billion years ago?
Yeah. Yeah, anatomically modern humans have only been around for about 200 to 300,000 years, and it's not even a blip in geological time.
Yeah, it's just
So,
blink of an eye, right?
We're nothing.
And there's all these pieces, and so I know that my boss is watching at home, and he loves cryptids, and he loves the idea of, like, there's a possibility that there could be something like Bigfoot out there, and we laugh about it, but I'm like, listen, there's a lot of crazy stuff out there. Could there be something within the record that we haven't seen yet? We're finding all kinds of stuff. Actually, you know what, Ryan? There's actually something I want to tell you about, because this is awesome, because it was found right outside of the city here in Colorado Springs, and it's this huge paleontological, there we go, I haven't said that word in a long time, discovery, where they were looking at the KT boundary, and they were like, life is here, and then we get to this point, and we can't really find much, and they weren't looking in the right place, and they just kind of looked over, and all of a sudden, they found this just burst of life. And it's all happening here in Colorado Springs. One of the reasons I love living here in Colorado is that there's all this space, and I can drive up the road to the Dinosaur Research Center that's maybe 45 minutes away. And this used to be an area of the continent where, like, giant rivers ran through, and there was sea life and there was land life. Stegosaurus was here, like, not too far up the road from me. And you can go and you can drive and you can take these amazing tours where here's the side of the earth that's just open that you might just think is a rock ridge. But with a professional, you can walk right up to it and be like, wait a minute, what is that? And they will show you and tell you exactly what it is. It's a beautiful thing to see, and I think it's something that you almost see the Matrix the more that you understand the evolution of our Earth and the evolution of life, that you can go through all these different places and say, if you were only to dig down so far, or if you were only to go so far down into the Grand Canyon or into these certain places, what you would find that's life. And in Cosmos, they did is like, the further you go back that way, the further back in time you go. The further you go this way, the closer in time you get to who you are and where we are now. And I think it's just so strange that we're never taken down that path in a way that it all has to be in a classroom. But when every single thing that happens in geology and paleontology and understanding the breadth of life on this planet is right out in your back door, and right out your back door in your backyard. How often are the most amazing finds found by amateur, amateur paleontologists, or somebody that just with a bucket and just digging in the dirt and find these amazing things.
Definitely. Yeah, I mean, let's see, I'm trying to think.
just really kind of discussing like that kind of connection for you. I mean, I know this is something that you put out there and you share with folks, and I mean to know it and understand it and obviously be so excited by it, and just to know that it's right out there, and there's this battle against this thing that you know that you love, that you teach. I know it's got to be something that's difficult.
Yeah, it can be. I mean, my blood pressure definitely goes high when I'm debating these people. Most definitely. I mean, I've been fighting this battle for a very long time. I mean, ever since I was like a child. I mean, pretty much.
There's another thing I also want to highlight too, is that that Ryan is on the autism spectrum and puts his work out there and connects with people and does lives with people, and that is awesome. What, not only does he do this work, but then he will also share the challenges that he deals with every day. As much as he loves this, he still gets up and still does it. And I know, like, so at least, well, one of my current writers and more than a few over the years for Stardom are on the autism spectrum, and Heidi by far is my number one writer and has been forever. She's incredible, and it's this way that we look back through time and we wonder about the greatest minds that have ever been before we understood what autism is. There's the idea that, you know, there's a lot of people, because, I mean, you can't really and you shouldn't really, like, diagnose without being around the person, but nearly everybody thinks that Isaac Newton was autistic. Like, now that we understand what, yeah, almost sure, you have to be kind of sure, right? And we talk about that with all these great scientists and these minds, and we kind of, those things click together, that it's this almost interesting way of understanding things and communicating these things. And so, is that something that you find is it a challenge for you? Is it something that actually makes you a better science communicator? Is it a mixture of both? I'm kind of interested in that.
I would say probably a bit of both, because I just have a wealth of knowledge that I can share offhand, off the tip of my tongue, and and yeah, I think it definitely does, because yeah, I mean, I guess because I'm just really passionate about it, and because autism gives you that ability to, like, be super absorbed in what you're passionate about and what you're interested in. So, like, you're definitely well versed in that.
Yeah,
area.
I know it's going to be something that truly kind of connects with you. I guess it's something that kind of comes along with being as hyper ADHD as I am. I'm assuming, we'll see. Like, yeah, and it's. But there's this something too that when you fall in love with it, you can hyper focus on something, and I get annoyed if somebody's bothering me while I'm, like, super deep into it, things like that. Like, I have something to do, I'm trying to get this done, and somebody clicking their pen or something like that, I'm like, I just need to be here. So, like, with so Janet and I, we had the Humans to Mars Summit, and during the Humans to Mars Summit, some stuff went wrong, and I was able to say, oh, I think I might have a solution to this. Had I had 10 people in the room screaming and freaking out, I would not have been able to finish and fix and come up with a solution for that, because I would have been all over the place. I would have been hyper stressed out. But being in this room I'm in right now alone, I was able to say, here is a solution to this. And I know that everybody here has a different kind of mindset in the way that they connect to things. And I think that there's also, and this is just me completely off the cuff kind of saying, we had this idea at one point that, well, you have this thing, and that's not a normal thing. We want to put you outside of the box. Where I think it's very similar to where we said, well, here's humans and here's the rest of life. I feel like now it's this circle of things that all of us are somewhere on some sort of type of spectrum, and we all try to find our strengths within that thing. Like, almost everybody might be here or there or this or that, and if you put it all together, we can have the best of us come together. And that's why a room full of people, in the right way, not too many cooks in the kitchen, but in the best way, here are my strengths and here are your strengths. So while we're in the background trying to figure out what's going on, Janet hops on and it's like, hey everybody, what's going on? I'm Janet. and I'm going to just be awesome and talk about the most amazing things in the world right now. Everybody's like, oh, nothing's wrong, and everything was wrong. The building was on fire, and we figured out a way to kind of get through that, and I love that, and I think there's been a lot of sharing that through tonight, and so I don't want to get, and there's a bunch of comments that I see that are coming in private chat as well. But Ryan, I do know that you said that you had some space questions, and we have 25 minutes left, so we have not really talked too much about space. So if you want to pick the space brains here, I am willing to go in while I look at the comments.
Definitely. So I know that the specific structure of the cosmic microwave background indicates that or like a 1% margin of error that the universe is probably flat. So that would probably indicate that it's infinite. I was just want to get you guys' take on that.
Okay, wait. All right, so let me back this up real quick because I feel bad because Mac had a question and I missed that. So Ryan, can you repeat the question? I'm going to let Mac ask you the question that he had for you, and then I will try and answer your question. We'll go in a circle. So Ryan, what was your question one more time? Because I know you were talking about cosmic background radiation.
Oh, So the specific structure of the cosmic microwave background, as far as I know, indicates that the universe is likely flat. Like there's like a 1% margin of error there. So like, I think that would imply that the universe is infinite instead of finite, right? That's my understanding of it.
Okay, perfect. And I'm going to keep that in the back of my head. Mac, you can ask Ryan the question, and I will try to come back and answer that the best that I can, not being a cosmologist, just all the stuff I've nerded out on over the years.
I don't think I'm qualified enough to even begin to answer that question. But my question goes back to before we close on the paleontology thing is, going back to at least my teens, 19, 20 years old, when we were climbing the peak of Mount Rum in Jordan. And as we're climbing, we're going through, as you're going through elevations, you're seeing, before we climbed the mountain, we actually went through a scuba diving certification course, and we saw all these corals, and it was a life-changing experience, and we felt like astronauts for the first time. And that's when it dawned on me that, like, wow, not even 500 people in the world went to space, but if you send anyone into the ocean wearing scuba gear, well, you're this close from being an astronaut in an alien world, and it will change their life. And I've changed hundreds of people's lives by doing that. And then thereafter, we climbed the peak of Mount Rum, which is where they shot The Martian and Star Wars and Transformers and a lot of movies that look like Mars. So as we're climbing, we're looking at these corals that we just saw a week ago underwater. We're seeing them and they look like rock. And then when we were done, we reached the peak and we went down and we got these awards and these medals, and we're talking to people and we're saying, hey, these rocks that we saw there look exactly like the corals we saw underwater. And then the actual scientist, military person, tells us, yes, about 50,000 years ago, the peak you were climbing was actually above water and everything else was below the ocean. But geographically, it was way before that, millions of years before that. And here we are in our 19 and in our 20s looking at each other saying, but wait a minute, Adam and Eve and everything wasn't like 6,000 years ago. This is what we were taught, and we were never taught anything other than a TV show by Carl Sagan a long time ago that, no, that's not the case. And then, but we actually, for the first time in our lives, found evidence of that. And so to us, that was a life-changing experience, and I never went back. That was it. That was the whole, for me, that was the whole Santa Claus isn't real, the Easter Bunny isn't real. And it was hard to take at the time, but I saw the evidence. And then as you start learning and as you start, educating yourself and you start learning about evolution and you actually start seeing and reading, and the proof and everything. So my question to you is, I still, even in the English language, and I brought up the fact that, it's just one language, the language of science, and you have 95% of the world that can't speak that language and don't have this information. So that's where my brain goes, to try to say, okay, to the rest of the 95% of the world, how do we do that cosmos, or teach that evolution? And you have the explosion of YouTube and science communication and everything, so you have a market that's untapped.
Yeah,
now.
that's why I like Neil deGrasse Tyson's new Cosmos. I love that show. That's for that reason, because it's definitely a rehashing of Carl Sagan's original work, which is quite fascinating.
Exactly.
And if I can jump in,
do the same thing in multiple languages and basically spread the word to the rest of the world, and take these people up to these mountains and actually show them the coral as rock 50,000 years ago, and show them the coral now as actual living coral today, and show them the coral that used to live 20 years ago as dead coral. Speaking of David Attenborough, you were talking Ron, and so yeah, that's where my brain is going. So yeah, so Ron, as you're speaking of this evolution, I mean, I learned this stuff in my early 20s, and I feel like kids in elementary school today, don't know this stuff, and I feel like, oh my God, it's too late for them. So
yeah, I mean, the American school system is pretty much failing our students these days. It's quite sad. I mean, we almost need to go back to the Cold War, where education was the top priority.
Hey, I moved out of Dover, Pennsylvania. You were probably one of the few people who know the significance of the name Dover, Pennsylvania.
Oh yeah,
Dover, Pennsylvania is where
famous
the
trial.
whole creationist Supreme Court thing happened, where they refused to teach evolution and they wanted to teach creationism only. And basically,
it was Kitzmiller versus Dover.
We actually sold our houses and we moved to a central school district, which is an amazing school district. We're very happy with it. And but we were in the middle of that battle over the death of science or not. So we sold our house and we moved 5 miles away, just because of the what you're talking about, your life's work right now. Basically, I had to sell my house and move to another school district, and your life's work basically is probably one of the reasons why I was empowered to do so.
Wow, interesting.
And Janet, I know you had something you want to say, and then I will try my best to answer Ryan's question.
Well, this goes to Ryan's question as well. This is I guess the only thing I can say is that, okay, so say even if just the overall spatial extent of our universe is infinite, and then if that be true, then they would say, well, then the universe can't get any larger. But we also still say that space is expanding because locally you've got these characteristic kind of like how do I say this? Characteristic distance between objects, and we know that's increasing. And so the way that I usually tell a kid is like, as infinite space grows, it is still infinite, right? I think that there is so it's a little bit like that. It's like I don't know if you guys know the lyrics to the Monty Python song about just remember that you're standing on a planet that's evolving and revolving at 100 miles an hour. And then it has another lyric where it's like the universe itself keeps on expanding and all the directions it can whiz. And so again, it's just like I always say to kids, let your mind revolve around this thought. The universe is always expanding. Let your mind do the same. And I think that's a bit of the answer. I think it's infinite. I think they're parallel universes, the multiverses. I'm hoping for all of that. But I also think that it is, I saw somebody had a Facebook question. I think it depends a lot on geographically where you live.
Hey, let's back up and answer. Like, let's give the question real quick that she was talking about. It's like she says, "What is the percentage of schools in the U.S. that are not teaching evolution?" And Kat in the comments has said that it's around 50%. But Janet, please share with us your answer on that one.
Yeah, so I agree with Kat wholeheartedly on that. It's probably about 50%, but I think where people draw the line is some places geographically. I'm here in the South, right here, smack dab on the Bible buckle. And, I have a personal faith construct that I never feel like necessary that I have to tell people about or that kind of thing. But, it's like, I totally think evolution is for real. I think humans came in, it's like we're looking at it, the timeline's like a 24-hour day. We're talking humans came in at like 11:59:59. I mean, we just got here.
Yep, exactly.
It's
a fraction of a second in there.
It's the whole thing there. So I think it's just a matter of what I tell all my friends, and especially all of my kind of believer friends, is that we must fall in love with the mystery. We must, again, it's always opening up space. Anytime that we're trying to learn something new or trying to break the habit of something that was taught to us over a long period of time, or break free from some of those manipulations that I heard Chris talk about earlier, or maybe that was you, Ron, about how we can sometimes grow up in systems that manipulate us into believing or whatever. And so it's like holding space, that it's like fall in love with the mystery. Like there's something new to be discovered. Like there's a kid out there, maybe Lucas, that's going to discover something here in the next hour that we lose and fall back on or gain or whatever. And we're going to know something new tomorrow. So yes, I believe that if the universe is infinite, it will always be infinite. If it's growing infinitely, it's still infinite. And I love to wrap. Now, Chris, do some art on that.
So I know that Kat wants to touch on that one, then I'll give my answer to it, and then we'll do the wrap up with everybody. But Kat, I know you had a moment you want to share with that.
Yeah, to the question, and this is one reason why science communication is so important. It's about 50% actively teach evolution, but it's really hard to pin down because you do have regional areas, states or cities that actively are against teaching it. And then you have teachers that aren't actively against it per se, or there's no legislation in their community against evolution, but they're not familiar enough with it. Bear in mind that educators, particularly elementary educators, they have to take anywhere from 2 to even sometimes 1 science class when they're getting their bachelor. Their science class may have been biology. Their science class may have been astronomy. Their science class may have been chemistry. So there's a lot of, maybe weaknesses is not the right word, but there's a lot of elementary teachers that aren't prepared to adequately teach every single science topic that they're expected to teach. And I wish wholeheartedly that teachers got more science education when they're getting their degrees to help facilitate better science education in the lower levels. But I'm with Janet. As a planetarium educator, I have audiences of so many different backgrounds, and I always say science does not have the ability to ever answer everything. And for every question you get an answer to, you usually get 5 more questions. So it's up to us to use our imaginations to fill in those gaps, but be open to build on knowledge as it comes in. It's always ever changing. So I'll tell them, this is what I know now from the evidence that we have available, but that doesn't mean that any of us can answer every question that the universe throws our way.
Definitely.
Beautifully said. And my answer for that is that you are correct. As the current understanding is that it is flat, and that when we look at the fact that we understand that it is expanding, obviously it's expanding into something. There has to be something beyond the space that we know of, because it's getting larger, and we know that it's getting larger, that even though it's only 13.8 billion light years across, or since the universe began, that we're about 96 billion light years across right now. Everything is the center, and there's a million different things to that. But then we get that question opens up the questions that Michio Kaku and all the great scientists are looking at. If you continue to expand, will we get to the great? I'm sorry. We're either going to have
Big rip.
the big crunch, or the big cool, where we spread out so often that there will be a time, 1 trillion years in the future, where you will look up into the night sky and see nothing because you will be so far away from the next one. But how does energy work when it comes to that? And then we still don't have the answer of what it's at the bottom of a black hole. So if there is a black hole, and the more that you pull in energy, that once you get to that point, that again, infinitesimally small theory, like point of light, that it doesn't explode on the other end, and a white hole becomes another universe. Are we going layers down at the same time that we have layers out? And what created us to begin with? Did it crunch back into the one? And even if it's just the one, what are we going out into? There's some that even say that there's a possibility that it's a universe and a universe that are expanding into that nothingness. What is faster than light? Nothing. But when we say what is faster than that, we mean quite literally nothing. We don't know what nothing is. We are 4.8%. Like matter, like stars, all of that is only 4.8% of what the universe is. The other 96%, we don't have a clue what that is. Dark matter, dark energy, no clue what that is. And if we continue to expand out into absolutely nothing, obviously we could race faster than light as we have expanded. What happens when there's a universe here and a universe here that are continuously expanding into nothing and bump into each other? And when it bumps into each other, that could be another Big Bang. The ideas of what this could be are almost infinite, which is amazing that there is not just one of us, and it's again just like us thinking that we are the center of the universe when we were just the planet, just this planet, and then that we didn't revolve around the sun. There's just so many different ways. There is not truly an answer for that, but it's one of my favorite things to look into. Yeah.
You know what a kid told me once about that? You know how adults would have the conversation or ask the question you just asked, because we've already gone through our growing up, and then when you remember when you were a kid and you used to ask these questions. And when I was in these camps, and this specific one wasn't necessarily a refugee camp, but it was just a regular school in the capital city, and then he jokingly said, "Oh, do the Arabs have to teach you the zero once every 1,000 years?" And
zero was a totally different. That changed the game. Zero changed the game.
Yes, but and we all laughed, and I was like, "Okay, but I want to take you seriously. What do you mean by that?" He was like, "Well, back 1,000 years ago, you used to, didn't you watch Cosmos? You used to count the Roman numerals. It started with the 1, and then another 1, and then another 1, and then a V and a 1 on the other side. That's the 4. And you started with a 1 and you moved on. You never thought about 0 and anything below it. And then once you discovered that from the Arabs, of course, because he's an Arabic kid, then the possibilities were endless beyond that. And then you discovered a whole different world. Like, yeah, but you hear that in every history book. What's your point? And he's like, my point is, look at your table of elements. It starts with hydrogen, then helium, and then lithium, and he just goes with 1 and 2 and 3. You're doing the same thing all over. This is a kid, a poor kid with no means, and he blew my mind talking about you're not even thinking element 0, then element -1, -2, everything. Now you start thinking science fiction. Now you say, okay, now we're talking matter, 0, antimatter, and now you were getting somewhere. And I'm like, whoa, you need to talk to people like Michio Kaku. I can't carry on a conversation with a 9-year-old now, because that just blew my mind. Right
from the mouths of babes. All right, everybody, this has been an incredible show tonight, so I'm going to go around and let everybody give the final thoughts. Give a minute, tell everybody anything else that you want to share with them, where they can find you on social media. Janet, we're going to start with you first, and then I'm going to start back from Chris and Kat and so on. So, Janet, you first, because I know you got to go.
Hey guys, Ron, I love you, my friend. Thank you so much for having me on. You can find me YouTube, Janet's Planet Official. Insta is Janet's Planet Official. Twitter and Facebook are Janet's Planet. If you've got kids, sign them up for the JP Astronaut Academy. I'm underwritten by a NASA grant, and I give it away free, no cost. So come and join. We'll be talking to some International Space Station folks. A bit of a challenge to all of you if you haven't done your hashtag NASA Moon Kit. NASA does want to know as they kind of pull up to their one of their green test runs in November, one of the final tests to make sure everything's integrated into SLS. But that's a great thing to participate in. Mostly, I just want to say, if you're interested and you love astronomy, keep learning, keep reading, keep dreaming, keep drawing, keep dancing your art, your science, and all of that, because I just think that's why I love science. It's ever evolving. It's ever changing. It's dramatic. It's artistic. It's the blend of everything. And we're never done. There's always something new to learn. So peace out, everybody. Happy Halloween. Howl at the moon. This blue moon. It won't happen. We won't have a full moon on Halloween again until 2039. So go out and look up. Bye, guys. Thanks so much for having me.
Love you, Janet. You're amazing. Chris, I want to go to you next. Give us a minute of just like your final thoughts, where people can find you on social media, and where they can find your work, and if it's the best way for people to get a hold of you. There's been so many people that are interested in commissioning you and talking about working with you. So is Instagram the best way to get a hold of you, or is there an email, anything like that? Let us know.
Of course, my Instagram is Ethereal Geometry. Weird name, cool art. That's where I most consistently post my stuff. I also have a website, etherealgeometryarts.com. I need to get better about updating it. My Facebook is Ethereal Geometry Arts. That's my business page, but honestly, I mean, while I'd love for people to follow that, you're going to see the same stuff posted on my Instagram. So it depends on if you have that Instagram or not. Otherwise, people are more than welcome to find me on Facebook, my personal page, but it's starting to fill up, and your best bet's just to contact me through Instagram, just Ethereal Geometry, and or however you want to do it. I really don't care. What else were you wanting to know?
I mean, if there's any final thoughts that you want to share with everybody, man, before you bow out tonight, it's your chance to say some words. If you do, you do. If not, don't worry about it.
I mean, honestly, I could go on for hours with opinions about, well, not opinions, but just, opinions that really go hand in hand with things that they were saying earlier. I mean, I think it just has to do with like a personal level of communication of, help people understand how faith and science can coexist without it being weird. I mean, as a Christian, I believe in a really old earth, and I believe that evolution was the process that was used to create everything. But,
BioLogos is good for that.
Say what?
BioLogos.org is pretty good for that.
Oh, yeah? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And I would love to help people to understand that whole, like, don't let getting caught up in wrong misunderstanding of context keep you from exploring the infinite world of space exploration, science, biology. I mean, honestly, I 100% believe that exploring all that is part of the drive that God gave us to want to explore the universe and discover more. I mean, it does nothing more than, if nothing else, it fascinates us even more, So, but, that's not on an artistic level, but it can definitely inspire art.
It not only can it, but it has. I mean, as I've traveled around the world, I mean, again, this is not something that it's a big thing for me, but losing my faith, losing my religion was something that made me want to explore the world more. And as I traveled around the world, I couldn't wait. When I went to Nepal and saw these 2,500-year-old temples for Buddhism and for oh my God, I'm blanking on it now. Sorry. And the Hindi spots that I went to was amazing. I loved going to Rome and going through these places. It makes you understand that there's still a beauty that's to that. Whether you do or don't believe it, that doesn't mean that you can't see the beauty in that. And I think it's something that's absolutely a part of our culture. And just because I share my thoughts, that's a part of freedom that you should be able to talk about that, explore that, and take that. That's nothing I want to take away from anyone or anything, and I think it's something that it's even more a beautiful thing. The majority of the people that I know are not going to be the people that say this is fundamentally exactly. I believe it exactly to the word. That it takes everything away from that. That you can't say that these things are beautiful and incredible. But Chris, thank you really so much for sharing that. And Kat, we'll go to you next. Let us know where we can find you, all the cool stuff you're doing, and where people can come visit you at Ingram Planetarium.
Yeah, so if anyone's in South or North Carolina, Ingram Planetarium's right on the coast, right between Myrtle Beach and Wilmington, North Carolina. Come see the dome. I don't have a huge social media presence, but if you're really interested, I am Space Cat 1220 on Instagram. And my final thoughts, especially on this All Hallows Eve, Halloween and almost every holiday we celebrate, it takes their roots from multiple places throughout history. And the more you understand about other cultures and religions and other parts of history, the more you realize how interconnected we all are, and we all share the same sky. So just keep an open mind this Halloween and all other Halloweens. And as Janet said, keep looking up.
A beautiful sentiment as we head into what could possibly be, I'm hoping we get to do a show next week. Let's hope things don't get too crazy. But that's a beautiful sentiment to share. Like we might have a very tumultuous, few days ahead of us, possibly weeks ahead of us. But it's important to remember that we are still human. We have more in common than we don't, and that's a very powerful message. So I don't know why, but Ryan, you and Max switched places. So Ryan, I'll go to you first, and then I'll finish with you, Max. So give us your final thoughts, where people can find you on social media, all that fun stuff.
Well, yeah, you can find me on facebook.com /Evo, EVO, BIO, Evo bio page. So sorry, I just lost my train of thought. EVO, BIO, and the word page. So you'll be able to find me there, all the postings that I do. And to add what Janet was saying about human insignificance, if you compress geological time into a day, if you were to compress all of geological history, 4.5 billion years to now into a single year, humans would appear only at the last 2 seconds out of the year. So that definitely puts them our place in the universe.
Yes, it does, sir. Yes, it does. And I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I think that's about it. I think that's good.
No, it's one of my. You're talking about quite literally one of my all-time favorite moments. The thing that really connected with me when with Cosmos when he talked about the cosmic calendar, and he says and as it gets through it, and then you get to the last day and the last hour, the last minute, and he says we wouldn't have shown up till the very last second. Oh, I'm sorry, the last 60 seconds on New Year's Eve. And that just blew my mind, man. That's just the most amazingly beautiful thing, no matter what you... Yeah, and just to think about that, but in that last 60 seconds, we achieved sentience, and we understand all of this in so many different ways, and we see it all, and we accept it or we deny it, and we have so many beautiful different ways of being alive, just as humans. And outside of that, there's the trillions of species that have been around for the billions of years since life really began, and it's just such a beautiful thing. And it's so exciting that we are now, and we have the chance to look out and be excited by that, and then question it all, and we have the freedom to do that, and that's what the mind has given us, and that's a truly beautiful thing.
The human species is born at a special time where we can actually observe the universe, because we have all the galaxies around us still, and we can figure out where the universe came from, a singularity. trillions of years from now or billions of years from now, all the galaxies out there will be gone. The universe will expand so huge that
we won't see them. Yeah, the big chill, baby, the big chill. Oh, dude, it was awesome. Mac Attack, I'll go to you next, man, so that way you can wrap it up with your final thoughts. Great shirt, by the way. Appreciate you representing for Space Foundation.
Well, and that's the only thing I can end with, because it's not fair what you just did to me. I mean, I'm a guy who writes checks, okay? I don't have the knowledge of Ryan. I don't have the charisma of Kat, and I don't have the talent of Chris. So,
but the hell with me. I see how it is. I thought we were friends. Like, you just left me out of that equation. That's cool. Thanks. No, I'm just kidding.
All I can say is what's on my t-shirt, because I'm not original. I don't have the ability to come up with something original like the previous commenters did. So all I can say is just read my shirt and say Space Unites. And
I like it.
I learned that from people who are much smarter than me, and they inspired me, and hopefully they inspire you too.
And which is funny to say after we had such an awesome conversation with Mac, who is, being completely polite about all the awesome stuff that he does. And I can't thank everyone enough for joining us tonight. We did run a little bit over. It's been such a great conversation, and that's one of the reasons that I love this show, that it can be so random. I never know who's going to pop in when I ask for last minute if something comes up. Honestly, I didn't even think we were going to have a show tonight because it was Halloween. And tonight has been a blast. I want to thank each and every one of you so much for joining us. Everyone that's watching at home, I hope you had a safe night tonight. If you were still out in a lot of the country, there's a lot going on. A lot of people are at a lot of parties. I hope you've been safe. I hope that you have stayed safe and stayed 6 feet away. Many people probably haven't, because it's been a long year, and maybe tonight was your night to let go and hope for the best. I hope that the best happened to you. And I do hope to see anybody and everybody next week. We have a big week ahead of us. I love you all, and I hope that it's a safe one for you. And I don't care who it is that you vote for, what it is that you vote for. Vote your heart and what you believe in. This is going to be a big week for us. And stay safe the best way you can, and continue to share the passion that you have in each of your hearts. And thank you so much for joining us tonight, and we will see you all on the next one. Everybody have a good night. Thank you so much.